I'm considering writing a script for a video that's kind of going to go into just different things. It's going to kind of be like Rotten Society, but more of a discussion about like those simple things that are just not the way that they're supposed to be. And I was thinking about a pattern I picked up on where I'll go to I'll work some job. It could be the last one I had, 18 months, or even some of the shorter stinted ones, where you'll have these coworkers who will smile and laugh and giggle and really seem to appear interested in speaking to you, talking to you, right when you're clocked in. But then when you reach out to them outside of there, you get little to no response. Maybe they'll reply to a text message or two before they just vanish off the face of the earth. And you know that this behavior is not something they do with everyone, because you'll see where they'll have some other person that works there, like, oh, I went over his house. Or so when you put their kind of resistant behavior to really trying to do anything with you, and couple it with how open they are with each other, it creates that gap in terms of, why is it that this is the response I'm getting? And I was also going to mention how, in dealing with these different online people, especially a lot of these girls, I have sometimes proposed the idea of, hey, we should see a movie together or watch some together. And when I say that, I'm not talking about, if it's a person online, going and driving or flying out to where they are. I'm specifically referring to going to some, website or whatever, and then playing it to where we can both watch it, because I've seen people do that as well. And what I picked up on is that most of them, when you directly ask if they'd be interested in something like that, they will either not respond directly to it, or they'll agree to it but not give a direct definitive time or day where they'd ever be available to do this. So if someone says, hey, person I know online, there's this movie I want to see and it's on this website, want to watch it with me, maybe some other time, well, I guess eventually. And every time I hear that, because again, this is what happens, is that this occurs once, then twice, then three times, and then you start to pick up on the pattern. Every time I hear that, I always let out either a external, which I know that sounds crazy, right? You let out something that's external, but either I have an external or an internal groan, because I'd rather, and this was kind of one of the talking points relating to the Mixed Signals Queen saga last year, I'd rather have someone just say no, like just say, I don't want to do this with you, than like string me along. Because when you agree to something but then put the asterisk of like, oh, we'll do this later, you create within the person you're doing that to this idea that you may eventually do that thing with them, or you will do that thing with them, just at some indefinite time. And then as you keep putting them off and delaying and never coming back to it, the person just sits there waiting for something that you never had any intention of actually doing. It's kind of crazy how, we were talking about like this romance stuff. People always are like, oh, getting rejected is so annoying. And you spend all these weeks and months talking to some woman to go on a date. But truly, I'm more aggravated by the idea of talking to someone, even not even in like a romantic context, right? Talking to someone, getting to know them supposedly for a couple of weeks, a month, maybe even a few months. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, how's your mom? How's your dad? Etc. And then you pop the question of, hey, why don't we go and see a movie together? Hey, why don't we go and hang out over here? You just, instead of them saying this is not something I'm interested in doing, or no thanks, they'd rather play games. Oh, well, maybe one of these days. Every time I hear it, I know exactly what it means, or what it really means, which is I don't plan on doing it. And I was trying to figure out, why are people so reluctant to just, shoot someone down, to just definitively say, this is not something I'm interested in doing. Because, for example, when my friend went to go see a movie earlier this year, I said to him, look, I'm always open to seeing a movie with you, but if I'm going to, be paying for this myself, I'm not interested in seeing the one you want to see. But again, we later ended up finding another movie that we both wanted to see, and saw it together. So it's not like I'm just blowing him off. It's that specific film is just not something I was interested in seeing. But I was really trying to figure out, why are people so incapable of just directly, saying they don't want to do something? Because you see this same character foible show up with a lot of employers, right? Where they're afraid to just tell someone we don't want to hire them, so they just will ghost you. The theory I had was that if it's a coworker or even like an online person, they may be genuine in liking, their exchanges with you, like just talking and interacting and whatnot. But in terms of wanting to go that extra step, right, of just doing something that's, that goes beyond typing, they're not interested. And they don't want you to know that they're not interested, that they're keeping you at bay. So they're going to try to promise something with no intention of delivering it, regardless of how little it would cost them to actually do it. I remember I mentioned that, like, on Twitter, they make fun of the male loneliness epidemic, right? Just like all different guys will say they're lonely and whatever. And I said, it's sad that if you're a guy and you have a basic goal, it could be wanting to, again, go on a date, or, just, hey, let's go eat somewhere, just something that has to do with human interaction, not even on like some physical crap of, oh, I want to meet some woman and grab on her, just literally going and sitting somewhere talking to somebody. If you want to do something like that, you might as well be climbing Mount Everest. It doesn't matter if you try to do that with someone online, in person. It's just, again, this will all make more sense if I make that video, but this is just like a prelude to it. Just kind of like, man, do things really have to be this hard? And the answer, of course, is no. But when you're dealing with a rotten society and people who would rather spend, all day staring at their phones and actually hanging out with anyone, this is what the byproduct is. And really, with the coworker thing, the explanation for that is simply that when they're working, they're kind of, they're bored, right? They're people in general just don't like their jobs. So when they get someone around them that's kind of like laughing, making them, amused, they don't want to ruin that relief that they have at work by turning that person or that relief down for something outside of work. So they agree to eventually doing something with no intention of actually doing it, so they can see how long they can stretch out getting that entertainment from you at the job. And I don't know, I feel like if somebody wants to do something with me and it like costs me nothing except just, hey, I'll drive over here, because I had a guy who, me and him went to see a movie together, and I drove over to that area where the job was because he lived over there and I didn't, so it was like a bunch of gas for me, but I didn't really care because, again, it was just me trying to hang out with someone. It's unfortunate that people can't be direct, like, even with the guys that come online and talk trash about the way I look or whatever other stuff, that's mostly, again, achieved or something they feel comfortable doing because they're like hiding behind computers. But with real life, it's sad that, you could be trying to just, hey, person who likes talking to me, how about we, go to this public place and do something together? Oh, well, I guess we, we could someday, eventually. And that's kind of my thing, that, like, at least with the guys writing the nasty stuff on the computer, right? There's the whole, like, you understand their anonymity is what makes them feel emboldened to do that. It's like being out in the open, or even just talking to someone online, right? They have this kind of like resistance to being direct, when the consequence of, doing this thing that they don't want to do is going to be, oh my God, going to see a movie with someone, going to eat somewhere with someone. It's sad. It really is. Just the kind of stuff that people are so against doing.